Once upon a time, in a beautiful city, lived a woman named Esther. When Esther opens her eyes every morning, it isn't to birdsong, it's to the sound of silence, heavy, suffocating, loud, the kind of silence that screams truths no one wants to hear. Her husband, Emeka, lay beside her, asleep, peaceful, at least on the outside. The world saw him as a success story. High-paying job at a multinational oil firm, tailored suits, designer cologne, a voice that carried weight. But Esther, she saw what others couldn't. The cruelty behind the cologne, the ego stitched into every suit, the insults hidden in every word he didn't say. She slipped out of bed, her feet touching the cold tile like a familiar friend. 4 a.m., just like every morning. By the time Emeka would rise at 7 a.m., Esther would have cooked, cleaned, prepared the girls for school, ironed his shirts, laid out his shoes. And still, he would call her lazy. Still, he would call her poor. Because in Emeka's eyes, a woman without an office, without heels, without a paycheck, was a burden. Not once did he see how their daughters, brilliant, articulate, disciplined, was shaped by their mother's constant, patient hands. He never noticed, because to him, Esther was invisible, a liability, a leftover from the village that he had rescued with his money. One Saturday, Emeka invited his friends over, men who smelled like money and walked like gods. Esther welcomed them with her usual soft smile. She served them drinks, then disappeared into the kitchen like a whisper. Not because she wasn't allowed to stay, but because staying came with wounds. Every time she sat near them, Emeka would turn her presence into a punchline, telling stories about how he met her barefoot on the street selling oranges, how he washed her clean and brought her to civilization. And they laughed. Those men, laughing at the woman behind the walls that held his home together. That day she served them grilled fish, but as she placed the tray down, her elbow nudged a glass of wine. It spilled on a guest's white shirt. A mistake, an accident, but to Emeka, it was an opportunity. "You're so useless, Esther," he barked. "A bush girl with no class. That's why I say stay in the kitchen." The room fell silent, then laughter, the kind that slices deeper than any blade. Esther stood frozen, wine dripping from her fingers, tears clouding her eyes, but her lips sealed. That night, while Emeka snored in bed, Esther stood by her daughter's bedside. She looked at their small fists curled in sleep and made a silent promise. "I will give you a mother you will be proud of." She walked to the living room, cold tiles beneath her, heavy heart inside her. She picked up her phone and typed, "How to start a business with nothing." She remembered a piece of fabric, a gift from years ago, tucked in a box that carried her forgotten self. She brought it out, laid it across her lap, and picked up a needle. No machine, just hands and hope. She began to sew. It was a simple tote bag, stitched with trembling fingers, but finished with pride. She hadn't sewn since her mother died, but that night, something awakened. The next morning, at the market, she carried the bag on her shoulder. A woman stopped her. "Where did you get that?" Esther smiled. "I made it. 3 orders, on the spot." She rushed home, heart racing, hands shaking. Not from fear, but from possibility. She brought out the rest of the fabric, sewed the bags, delivered them. And at the end of the week, she had made 10,000 naira. To Emeka, it would have been small change. To Esther, it was proof. Proof that she was still someone, that she wasn't broken beyond repair. She opened a digital wallet on her phone. She named it the Freedom Project. She didn't stop. By day, She was the mother, the cleaner, the cook. By night, she was the builder of a quiet empire. She woke at 4 a.m., as always, but now her hands moved with purpose. Each stitch, a statement, each bag, a rebellion. Then came the day that shattered what was left of her illusions. She saw him, Emeka, with another woman, driving into a hotel like she didn't exist. She confronted him, tears hot in her eyes, but Emeka laughed. "This one," he said, pointing at the lady in heels beside him. "You think I'm cheating with her on you? Please, do you know how much she makes in a month?" He mocked Esther, called her a market woman, said she could never match up, then asked the question that sliced through her: "Are we even married?" That night, Esther did not cry. She did not scream. She burned, not with rage, but with a new kind of fire, the one that comes when a woman is finally done being small. She sewed. She posted her best bags on Instagram, using her late mother's name. Within 48 hours, her first bulk order, 50,000 naira, more money than she had ever held in her hands and called hers. She began to sew all night. Sleep became optional. Success became oxygen. And Emeka, he didn't notice, too busy mocking, too blind to see. One rainy day, she came home to find all her fabrics drenched. Emeka had thrown them out. She asked why. He laughed. "Stop embarrassing yourself. If you want to sew, go learn from real tailors. Stop littering my house." Esther didn't reply. She simply picked up her phone and kept working. Her Instagram account boomed. Customers returned. Orders multiplied. She secretly rented a shop, hired 2 workers. Her bank account now read 6 figures. And still, Emeka mocked her. Busy being broke? He sneered one night. Esther smiled, because now his laughter meant nothing. Then, one morning, a knock on the gate. A woman in red heels, elegant, poised. "Good morning," she said. "Are you the one who makes those beautiful tote bags?" Esther blinked. "Yes. I'm the owner of a fashion store in town. One of your bags ended up with my cousin. I've been searching for you." She handed Esther a contract. "I need 300 pieces every month. I'll pay up front." Esther's hands trembled as she held the paper. This wasn't a dream. This was destiny knocking at her gate. And this was just the beginning. That morning changed everything. As the woman in red heels drove away, Esther stood at the gate, contract in hand, heart pounding like a war drum. She could still hear Emeka inside, yelling at the kids to turn down the TV, unaware his entire world was about to shift. She walked into the house, gently folded the contract, and tucked it into her Bible. Not because she was religious, but because her mother always said, "Hide your treasures where only heaven can see." The next few days moved like fire. Esther rented a second sewing machine, hired another tailor. She worked while her kids were in school, worked while Emeka slept, worked through the silence, through the fatigue, through the ache of being unseen. She was building something sacred. Her small business had a name now, Oloma Threads, named after her late mother, who used to whisper, "Don't let them decide who you are, Annie. Be loud, even if only with your hands." One Saturday afternoon, Emeka barged into the kitchen. "Where were you?" he asked. Esther, calm and poised, answered softly, "At the tailor's shop." He scoffed. "I told you to stop wasting time on that nonsense." But this time, she didn't flinch. She looked him in the eye and said, "I'm not wasting time. I'm building something." Emeka laughed, louder than usual. "You building what? A mountain of debt?" She didn't reply. She had learned that silence was a better teacher than anger. A week later, her first bulk order was complete. 300 beautifully handcrafted tote bags, each with her signature embroidered along the hem uloma. She delivered them, was paid in full, 450,000 naira. She stared at the alert on her phone. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from arrival. That night, she wrote a note in her journal. I am no longer who I was when he married me. God made me again with thread and pain and midnight oil. But with success came a different kind of pressure. Emeka noticed the deliveries. He noticed her confidence. He noticed that she no longer begged for money for the girls' school fees. So, one night, he went through her phone and found the bank statements, the business page, the contracts, the DM from the fashion influencer who had reposted her bag and called it the next African luxury. Emeka slammed the phone on the table. So this is what you've been doing behind my back. Esther didn't blink. I've been surviving, his voice thundered. I'm your husband. You should have come to me. She looked him in the eye and said the words she had never dared to say. You don't see me, Emeka. You never have. He stormed out, gone for days. She didn't chase him. She had spent enough years chasing a man who never truly came home. Instead, she expanded. She partnered with a woman in Red Hills, opened a small showroom, started training girls in her neighborhood for free. Girls like she once was. She didn't just want to sew bags anymore. She wanted to sew destinies. 2 years passed. Emeka had lost his job, mismanaged his finances, spent recklessly. Now he sat in their living room, quiet. The power had shifted. He heard Esther's voice on the phone, calm and commanding. Yes, we can ship to Ghana. Yes, bulk pricing applies. No, I'm unavailable for interviews this week. I'm launching a mentorship program. He watched her, a woman he once called worthless, now moving with elegance, intention, and grace. One evening, he sat at the edge of their bed. He whispered, Esther. I didn't know. She nodded. I know. Tears formed in his eyes. Is there any way I can fix it? She looked at him, not with revenge, but with strength. You don't need to fix me, Emeka. I'm already whole. Uloma's Threads is one of the fastest growing handmade fashion brands in Lagos. Esther employs 16 women, speaks at women's conferences, sponsors 5 girls' education every year. And in every interview, when they ask her, who inspired you to start? She smiles and says, pain. Pain started it, but God finished it. And when they ask, what would you say to other women who feel unseen? She pauses, then answers gently, start with what you have. Even if it's just a thread and your story, sew it into something beautiful. You are never too small to begin again. If this story moved you, there are more waiting to be told. Subscribe to Real Timeless Tales, where every story leaves a mark.